So the note that I would like to end on is to, I guess, talk about wokeness and the metaphysical trappings of wokeness. Because you wrote, I can't remember which article it was, but you wrote that you never liked the claim that wokeness is analogous to religion. Wokeness is mostly just bad ideas. You do go on to say that you think the trans stuff is much closer to religion. And I don't understand this at all. Sam Harris makes the same statement, and to me, it just doesn't scan. You have secular saints, George Floyd, we can all name them, right? You have rituals, and you do have faith, right? You don't like. I know that you think this is maybe not the case, but you don't have to push people that far. And I think you do note this in the piece before they just say systemic racism, right? These invisible forces. So how is it not? And I mean, like, we all know the line that the difference between a cult and religion is just the size. Call it a cult if you want, but the point is, to me, there is a very clear map there. So why is it not a religion?
If your definition of religion, is something like irrational things people believe without any evidence, then maybe, yeah. I don't think that's what's interesting. That's not my definition of religion, because I think what's interesting about religion is what it tells you about sort of the soul, the afterlife, man's place in the universe.
Whiteness is original sin. Like, there is doctrine.
Yeah, even the language policing.
There's doctrine, but there's no universe. Like, the universe doesn't care about like America's race relations, right? It's like almost like very like it says like it's the American context. If you push these people a little bit, it's like they have like sci-fi sometimes, and like the new Game of Thrones is I watched a little bit of this. It's like they added diversity, and it's like like the black people sometimes push around the white people, and the white. It's like there's no like it's like a liberal could make that because there's no like eternal thing in white people's souls that makes them oppress black people's souls and makes people the victim. It's an idea about the race relations is in America. The way they think about it is based on sort of American and Western history. So yeah, I mean, what's interesting about a religion, like you could say communism is a religion, right? I mean, what's interesting about communism versus Catholicism is that communism tells you, Catholicism tells you where the universe came from, how it's going to end. The universe is not indifferent. I think this is a very important distinction. Another thing about wokeness is religion is it gives it too much credit. Like religions have staying power. They've survived. They pass on from one generation to the next. And there's the same saints and the same symbols, and they form communities based on that. It's not like people just sitting online and putting on the thing on their it's like Slender Man. Is that like a religion? Because a lot of people like it, and they might put it on their social media profile or something. Like, no, religion is a different thing. I mean, I think that the belief structure that goes into it, the way it builds communities, it's sort of lasting influence. I think it's his own thing, and I don't think it's like a rhetorical. I think it's like a rhetorical ploy. It's like, you guys are irrational, therefore you're a religion. But I do think it's good to distinguish the concept.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about this, though? Don't you think that at least some of the metaphysics, the meaning, the Manichaeanism? I didn't mean to do three.
What about like just what you say, like Trump, like Trump's cultists are like a religion too?
No. Hold on, let me explain that. That rather than a religion, this set of beliefs that we might call wokeism hooks into the same kind of moral and political psychology that religion does. So, in other words, it whether it attempts to do this or not, because it's just an emergent order, I take it, it provides some of the same sources of satisfaction: community, meaning. There's a metaphysics, like we're slowly moving toward justice, but we're never quite there, and that can all be bullshit, right? In fact, I think it is all bullshit, but it can still be real. It can still serve the same function as a religion, even if it's not a religion. What do you think about that?
I think that's right. When you say politics and religion often tap into the same sort of psychological needs, I think is right. I think one thing about wokeness, though, is that, and I have another, this is another, keep referencing my articles. There was one about wokeness as a paper tiger. Is it gives it a little bit too much credit because it doesn't do those things as well as religion. Like, people do not go, like people like missionaries in the heyday of Christianity would go to the far reaches of the world and like preach. Like, nobody does that and like preaches gender theory, right? They it's such cheap sort of virtue signaling, and like,
Yeah.
there's not even like, there's not even like, these people could send their kids to like inner city schools. They don't do that, right? If they were like, you look at Christians from, real believing Christians from the Middle Ages, I mean, they would die for their beliefs. They would, so it's like, it's different, but it's also just, it's weaker than religion. And,
Right.
it's sort of like we should realize that too. It's like, it's sort of, it's different, but it's also like not as strong as people think. And that's why we can push back against it.
Another point in your favor, which I hadn't thought of before, is that there's pretty good survey evidence in and outside of the US that religious people tend to be happier in the subjective sense, at least.
Yeah, it's adaptive. Exactly. Right.
And the wokists are the opposite. And your colleague, Eric Kaufman, documented this. We just spoke with them. Most of the unhappy blue-haired protesters you see on campus are women with literal disabilities, mental disorders. They say they have these disorders. They're very unhappy people. So in that sense, maybe you're right.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right. That's a good rule of thumb.